There is a specific kind of person who can sit in a room that is burning down and tell you calmly that everything is fine. Not because they are brave, not because they are in denial, but because somewhere very early in their life, their nervous system made a calculation, and that calculation was this: your feelings are not the priority here. Someone else's stability is. Someone else's crisis is. Your internal weather is a luxury no one asked for, including you. This is where it starts, not in adulthood. Not in one relationship or one bad year. It starts in a childhood where the environment was inconsistent enough that the body had to make a choice about how to survive it. What the body learns when safety is conditional. The brain is not sentimental. It is adaptive. When a child grows up in an environment where emotional needs are routinely unmet, not always through cruelty, sometimes just through overwhelm, absence, or the quiet chaos of a household that asks too much of too few people, the nervous system reorganizes around what is available rather than what is needed. What happens in those early years is not character formation. It is threat management. A child whose attachment figures are unpredictable, present sometimes, collapsed or volatile others, learns that closeness is not safe and neither is distance. The body learns to stay in a permanent middle state, close enough to monitor, far enough to not get hurt. This is not a personality type. It is a posture the nervous system adopts when love has a hidden condition attached to it. When a child is asked, explicitly or implicitly, to manage a parent's emotional world, to soothe the parent's anxiety, to not need things so the parent can stay regulated, to be the steady one when the adult cannot, something important gets displaced. The normal developmental task of learning to recognize your own internal states gets interrupted. The child becomes oriented outward, toward others, because inward orientation has been, however unconsciously, made to feel dangerous, selfish, or simply useless. The body carries this. Long after the childhood environment is gone, the body carries this. The habit nobody notices, the subtle habit, is not dramatic. It does not look like a disorder from the outside. It is not dramatic enough to name at a dinner party. It is the habit of not registering yourself in real time. It looks like this. Something happens to you, something that would register as significant to most people, and your first move is not to feel it. Your first move is to assess whether it is worth feeling. You run a quick internal audit. Is this real? Is this proportional? Can I afford to have a response to this right now? Most of the time the answer you arrive at is no. So you continue. You keep moving. You respond to the email. You show up for the person who needs you. You manage the situation in front of you with a competence that other people find remarkable, and that you experience as the bare minimum required to function. This is not strength, this is a habit. And the distinction matters enormously, because strength is something you can set down. Habits run without your consent. The cumulative cost nobody warned you about here is what the research on chronic stress teaches. Translated out of its technical language, the body keeps a running tab. Every time the nervous system is asked to absorb stress without processing it, every time you push through, override your own signals, remain functional under conditions that should require rest, the body adds it to an account. The account does not forgive debt. It accumulates. This is not metaphor. The physiological burden of sustained vigilance, of never fully discharging stress, of maintaining high alert functioning across years, changes the body's baseline. The system recalibrates toward chronic activation. The thermostat gets set higher. What this means in practical terms is that rest stops feeling like rest. Stillness starts to feel like threat. The absence of a crisis becomes the very thing that makes you most uneasy. People who grew up with their nervous systems chronically mobilized often cannot tolerate peace. Not because they don't want it, because their body has been trained, by experience, by necessity, to read calm as either the moment before something bad happens, or evidence that they are not paying close enough attention. Relaxation for these people is not an absence of tension. It is a different kind of tension, the tension of waiting for the relaxation to end. Hypervigilance stress discompetence, one of the more insidious aspects of this pattern, is how well it performs. A nervous system trained to monitor for threat is an exceptionally useful nervous system in a world full of problems to solve. The person who grew up reading rooms, managing moods, anticipating needs before they were expressed, that person becomes very good at exactly those things. They become the reliable one, the perceptive one, the one who notices what everyone else misses. What nobody says is that this is not a skill. It is a symptom wearing a skill's clothing. The hypervigilance that was trained into survival in childhood does not know how to distinguish between a genuine emergency and a Tuesday afternoon. It runs the same scan in the grocery store that it ran in a chaotic household. It tracks facial microexpressions in people who are simply tired. It reads neutral as negative, quiet as ominous, and ordinary conflict as a harbinger of collapse. The internal life of this person is not calm. It is a low-frequency alarm that never quite goes off and never quite stops. From the outside, this looks like attentiveness, capability, and self-sufficiency. From the inside, it is exhausting in a way that cannot be accurately described to someone who has not lived it, because it is not the exhaustion of having done too much. It is the exhaustion of never, not once, having fully stopped. Why rest feels like a moral failing? There is a specific flavor of guilt that comes with needing things. Not just guilt about needing rest or help or care, though those are present. It is a more foundational guilt, one that attaches to the very fact of having needs at all. The body knows this guilt before the mind can name it. It shows up as discomfort when someone offers help that hasn't been earned. As the instinct to minimize your own pain before anyone else does it for you. As the reflexive "I'm fine" that exits the mouth before the internal experience has even been checked. This is not low self-esteem in the conventional sense. It is a deeply encoded belief, formed before language was available to examine it. That care is something you receive when you have been sufficiently self-sufficient to have not needed it. The children who are asked to be the steady ones, who are rewarded, consciously or not, for not needing things, for being mature, for managing themselves in the absence of adequate adult support, learned that their value was contingent on their not being a burden. The shame of needing becomes structural. It is built into the architecture of how they relate to themselves. In adulthood, this means that even when the environment has completely changed, when there are safe people present, when care is genuinely available, the nervous system does not update the policy. It continues to operate on the original terms. Earn your right to be cared for by not needing it. The emotional split nobody talks about because emotional suppression, when practiced across a childhood, does not simply reduce emotion, it fragments it. There is a part of the person that is emotionally sophisticated beyond their years. Attuned to nuance, perceptive about others, capable of deep empathy, able to hold complexity without flinching. This part developed in response to necessity. Understanding the emotional world of others was a survival task. And then there is the other part. The part that has no language for its own experience. That goes blank when asked what it needs. That can describe your sadness with precision and is genuinely confused by its own. That intellectualizes rather than feels. Because feeling was never modeled as something that happens in response to your own life, only in response to the lives of others. This split is not a contradiction. It is the natural result of emotional development that was oriented entirely outward. The relational intelligence grew in one direction. The self-directed emotional capacity, the part that allows a person to experience their own inner life as valid, as worth attending to, as real, was left largely undeveloped. The result is a person who can be extraordinarily present for others and bewilderingly absent to themselves. Who knows what you are feeling before you do, and cannot tell you with any confidence what they felt this morning. What disconnection from reality actually looks like, the disconnection does not happen all at once. It is not dramatic. It is the accumulated result of 10,000 small moments of looking away from your own experience. It looks like not being sure if you are tired until you have been awake for 36 hours. Not being sure if you are hurting until your body stops cooperating. Not being sure if a relationship is damaging until you have absorbed enough damage to make it unignorable. It looks like living several steps behind your own life. Responding to events after the emotional signal has already passed, if it arrives at all. Registering grief in retrospect. Processing anger intellectually. Experiencing joy for approximately 3 minutes before the vigilance system reasserts itself and begins scanning for what might undo it. It looks like reading your own life as though it is happening to someone else. Fluent in the language of experience, unfamiliar with the experience itself. The unsettling truth at the end of this: there is a version of healing that gets sold as a return to softness, as learning to feel again, to be vulnerable, to open up. And while none of that is wrong exactly, it misses something important. The harder truth is this: for people who organize themselves this way, healing is not about becoming less capable or more dependent. It is not about dismantling what was built. It is about learning, sometimes entirely from scratch, without a model, without a map, that the conditions under which these adaptations were formed no longer exist. The vigilance was accurate once. The self-suppression was functional once. The hyperindependence was, in every real sense, necessary once. These are not pathologies. They are responses to environments that required them. They are the reason a child survived what they survived. But the environment has changed. And the nervous system has not received the memo. What healing requires, and this is the part that does not fit neatly on a poster, is tolerating the profound discomfort of safety, of allowing rest that is not earned, of accepting care without immediately calculating what it will cost, of stopping, not because the work is done or the environment is finally certain, but because stopping no longer requires permission from anyone. That permission was never actually being withheld from the outside, it was being withheld from within, by a system that was only ever trying, in the only ways it knew, to keep you alive. The system did its job, that is not in question. The question now, quieter, more difficult, with no clear deadline attached to it, is whether survival is still the ceiling, or whether it can finally, without apology, become the floor.